Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you all for coming. We today are gonna have an update from Chris and myself and what's happening in the development office. We have a lot going on every day, and I do more than just sit in meetings, which sometimes feels like that's all I do, but we have, I would say, never mind. Oh, can you hear Oksana? Are you good?
Her phone is muted.
Okay, yeah.
she's
so-
like-
Yeah, she calls in with, she
Whatever,
has
yeah.
two, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I guess just a quick, I don't know, down and dirty of what we do in the development office. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Tim.
Every building permit that someone applies for comes in. Chris looks at it. If it needs to go to planning and zoning for something special, then he'll send it my way. That's a simple kind of version of what we do. Anything, any new developments come in, site plans, subdivisions, things like that, special use permits, they come in to me and ultimately make their way to the planning board and the zoning board of appeals. And then go back to Chris when they're ready to start building. That's again, a very simple summary of what we do. And we've got Dale who does all the residential inspections, and Chris does all of our stormwater management inspections, MS4.
I was gonna say, if you're
I mean,
in a summary of code enforcement, I can give you
all
the
right, go ahead.
2022 in review. So far, we've issued over 450 permits this year. We have 10 active stormwater MS4 permits where we do weekly inspections. We review applications, issue building permits, complete construction inspections, which Dale doesn't do many of the reviews as far as building permits and stuff, but he probably does over 3,000 to 4,000 inspections per year. Everything from energy code to framing to pretty much everything. Also, code enforcement, we issue stop work orders in the worst case scenarios. We issue certificates of compliance and occupancy. Difference between the two is if you build a new house or build a new commercial building, you're issued a certificate of occupancy. You're only issued that once per lifetime of a structure. So it says this is a single family dwelling and you can live in it as a single family dwelling. Everything is correct. Or it's a commercial building, it's type 5 construction, it's sprinklered and stuff like that. And it's a restaurant. It tells you exactly what's to be used for and what the occupancy is, what the occupancy loads are. Each room has a certain number of people can have it. And then everything else, you get a certificate of compliance with. If you're putting in an air conditioner, water heater, addition to your home, all those things get a certificate of compliance that you complied with the code and all the conditions of your building permit. Other things that code enforcement does, we respond to fires, explosions. It's mandatory that the fire department gives us calls for any fires that were actually turned out to be fires. I think like 95% of their calls for smoke alarms and stuff are false calls and stuff, but most of the time it's false or someone's burning something on their stove. But the other times Dale just responded and Ron just responded to someone driving into the Tim Hortons up on where is it? 332 on North Street. Someone drove into the ladies' bathroom and drove away. So we go to
Away.
yeah, we also go to unsafe structures, fires, explosions, stuff like that. We issue operating permits and do inspections. We are kind of failing a little bit on the special use permits as far as doing inspections because our code reads that we do every 3 years, but we've issued a lot of special use permits over the years and we don't really have great record of the ones we've issued. So we're working on hiring a zoning
Yep.
officer and one of his jobs is going to be go out and make sure that those special use permits are still active or not active and they're operating within the conditions of approval of the planning board. Fire safety and property maintenance inspections is another thing that code enforcement and there's two different levels. There's a code enforcement and building safety inspectors. We have Ron Bement, which is our building safety inspector. And he inspects every commercial occupancy every 3 years and all assembly occupancies every year. A commercial occupancy is everything except single-family dwellings or two-family dwellings. So he's going to all the apartment buildings, all the commercial buildings, all the restaurants, all the office buildings. And we have probably over 300 to 400 of those. So he has a pretty much an Excel spreadsheet where he just starts from the beginning and goes through them and everything. He'll do one visit and note any deficiencies if they have electrical panels blocked, their fire extinguishers are expired, some systems aren't working and stuff. He'll write a nice polite letter that says these are the items you need to have addressed. And then he'll come back within a month when they've addressed it and then give them pretty much a sign off sheet that everything turned out good. Other things we do is respond to complaints. We're actually on our new cloud permitting software is going to have an online complaint where you can go online, fill out the information, and we can track complaints, and people that did the complaint can track where we're at on it as far as photos and if violation notices have been issued or if the complaint was unfounded. Another big thing we do is record keeping. We keep all the records of all the permits, all the documents, all the inspections, all the photos, all the building permit documents, your office's
Plans.
planning and zoning and signed plans. And then when we get them all together, pretty much the town clerk is the keeper of the information when the building permit is closed out and a certificate of occupancy is issued. Other things we do is we do review and reporting to the state. The state Department of State is the one that issues code enforcement officer and building safety inspectors, their licenses. And every year they require every municipality to report back to the state on how many permits were issued, single family dwellings, additions, buildings, stuff like that, commercial buildings, how many inspections you've done, whether you're keeping up to date with the energy code and such and stuff. Other things, we can enter into intermunicipal agreements, which we have done with Bristol. So Bristol issues probably about 50 building permits a year. And we entered into agreement with them. So we do their inspections and issue building permits and reviews and stuff. They still take care of all their planning and zoning board stuff, but we just do the building permits and inspections. So other things that we do in our town, all the code enforcement officers are stormwater management officers. So we do the inspections for our MS4, which is, we're an operator of an MS4, which is a municipal separate storm and sewer system. So rather than the DEC issuing permits for large construction projects, the town now takes that and we issue the permits and reviews and everything. So Dale does inspection sites. He'll call me if the smaller residential sites have issues. But every week I'll go to almost every large scale construction that's going on right now. We have Pierce Brook, which is going on, Center Point, the Villas Phase 4, Cedar Bush, Canandaigua Crossings. There's a dentist office on Middle Cheshire Road that's expanding. Lakewood Meadows, though it's coming to an end, they still have a few items they need to do as far as their stormwater. We have a lot of homes on County Road 16, house on the end of Wells Curtis Road, North Menteith. We have 4 approved lots off County Road 16 near Vista Drive and some, let's see, reconfigured lots near Miller's Nurseries, Turk properties that we're looking at right now. What other things? We are all floodplain administrators as far as administrating New York State building code, as far as construction in their floodplains. New York State's probably going to be issued new FEMA flood maps with higher elevations, larger areas. Kind of the thought is FEMA's looking for funding sources, so everyone's flood insurance is going to go up along the lake because they're expanding areas. We're also zoning officers, so when we review building permit applications, if things need to be addressed as far as zoning, it gets kicked over to planning and zoning if they need a variance, if they need site plan approval and everything. We administer animal laws in the town, docks and mooring laws, wastewater system reviews, and we issue addresses. So that's kind of a big list, a bundle of what we do in the town that Dale and I do.
Just so how many
Just a
people do
few
you have working
things.
for you?
Right, we work as a team. We're not really working
It's
for
just the
us.
two of you?
No, it's Dale, does all the construction inspections. And so, yeah, he probably does 20 to 25 a day.
Do you have someone in the office managing all the?
We have
paperwork?
Allison
We have
that
Allison
takes in all the
Hirschman.
building permit
Okay.
information, and we are looking for a zoning officer, which would be
Yeah,
answering
I
stuff
see
at the
that, I
desk.
see that.
Yeah.
I do pretty much the building permit reviews and stuff like that, and
And the
then
complaints?
the complaints, but we've lately not got as many. We formalize them so they can get stuff on paper, because we're getting a lot of complaints that they wouldn't identify who it is or this and that, and
I know.
It's
of one in
difficult.
Particular.
Code enforcers have to have thick skin.
Yeah.
we do, and
Oh, yeah.
sometimes I don't. It's a hard job some
I had a
mornings.
question about just to flesh it out. the
Yeah.
MS4, how does that look?
So what an MS4 is a lot of municipalities like Gorham is an MS4, the Richmond isn't an MS4, and an MS4 is when you get to a certain density
Right,
of houses per acre and stuff like that. And we have a storm sewer system and a sewer system where we actually have like subdivisions with inlets, grates, ponds, stormwater infrastructure. The DEC really didn't have the manpower to review every town, and when you get dense like Canandaigua is with all the subdivisions and everything, with all the infrastructure and ponds and stormwater and commercial areas, they didn't have the time or the manpower to do it. So what we become is the operator of a small MS4. And it's a program where the town engineer reviews plans and makes sure that any rainwater that hits a site, whether it be the house, the driveway, the roads, all that rainwater and muck and sediment and silt and antifreeze and oil and car wash stuff, all that goes into the inlets, through a stormwater system, into a pond or a stormwater management facility. And that's where all the silt and sediment and junk and everything kind of filters out before it goes to the next stage. And then before it gets released into a stream or a lake and stuff like that. So our job during construction is to make sure that during a big rain event, all this mud and silt and everything just not going right to our lakes and our streams and muddying things up and causing environmental issues. Other parts of it are sewer systems, people's septic systems. We've had issues where septic systems back up or break or stuff like that are not maintaining. So we have to do fun inspections on those. But yeah, our MS4 program is pretty much just monitoring and making sure that everyone isn't just releasing stuff into the environment, into our lake and stuff. Because we're dense. We have more homes now than we used to. And if another town, I mean, I could show you a map of our MS4 area, and it pretty much covers. Where's town?
Do you want to share the screen?
Yeah, I'll share it in a second. Zone office, stormwater. Oh, let's see, let's go back to Zoom. Full screen. So we're back to stormwater and kind of gives a timeline of when things started back in 2013. Pretty much when I signed on here.
Say that's when you first started, right?
Yeah, it was like, you're taking care of the MS4 program, which was nice because I have the engineering background and stuff. But let's see. Public involvement, let's just construction site. Trying to think where our map is. I can go to store network. It's no way.
you have to be adept at computers. Obviously,
Honestly, the biggest part of the MS4 program is record keeping. It's just making sure we keep all evidence, because if you go like to our MS4 program, we can go to appendices. And every single project, active stormwater permits. These are all the active stormwater permits. And like if we pick Lakewood Meadows Section 9 and go to SWIP inspections, they send me a SWIP inspection every single week. There's hundreds of them since it started back in whenever.
So do you work with the DEC on that? Because some of the streams are managed by the DEC and.
The streams really aren't managed by, if you're gonna do something in the stream or stuff.
Mhm.
And they do obtain the actual permit from the DEC, but we review the plans from the contract. MRB plays a really big part in it, because they review the plans and make sure they meet all their requirements. And then when MRB says, Chris, they meet all the requirements, I sign a sheet that says, yes, you can apply to the DEC for a permit. So the DEC really is almost hands off unless something horrible happens, like a violation. But again, we take care of our own violations now too, because we adopted a couple new laws. But let's see.
So that's a good thing because you're local and they're not really.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I call Thursdays is stormwater Thursdays for me. So I go around and kind of look at every single stormwater management facility in the town, not the facilities, but the construction sites. But this red line was created back in 2013 and said, this is our densely populated area. And it's our MS4 boundary, which
Oh,
hits the houses, the subdivisions, and in probably another few years, they'll probably expand this map to
Yeah, it's just-
include
yeah,
Lakewood
I'm excited.
Meadows, includes
I bet it'll be a much
Pierce Brook
bigger-
and stuff like that. But it pretty much envelops the developed area, Saddlebrook, or yeah, they should be in it. There's a few different ones. They'll probably include this.
They'll probably include uptown, some of
Yeah.
that on the west side,
And then
east side and west side.
we do mapping, we do, let's see, all the stormwater management facilities. I've mapped all of those. We do inspections every 3 years on the actual ponds and stuff. Here's a new one. It was just created, it kind of has red dots where all the stormwater management facilities are throughout the town. We have 3 maps of the town, and this is kind of where they are. If we zoom in. They're in the subdivisions and everything. Oh, what else? It pretty much kind of covers the stormwater stuff.
now, do you get involved in decisions about expansion, development of subdivisions and so on and so forth, or are you just, somebody else decides that and you gotta manage it?
So originally, like in our town, we weren't really up on everything as far as stormwater management. So Old Brookside, like next door, there's usually a homeowners association, and the homeowners association pays fees, and they maintain their own ponds, they maintain their own infrastructure. I'll do inspections of it and say, hey, there's some willow trees, there's stuff blocking your events and stuff like that. But when we originally started doing stuff in the town, Old Brookside, the town didn't realize what the maintenance probably was gonna have to be, so there was no HOA, and we own the property around Old Brookside, which has all the ponds in it and stuff, so the town actually is the one that has to maintain it, but they're in a drainage district, so every building or home pays something per unit per every many years. And there'll be a fund like $10,000 that after 15, 20 years, like I said, those ponds get silt and sediment in it. After so many years, they actually get 50% full, and you have to drain them, dig them all out, take that sediment, spread it out on a field so it evaporates, and mix it, make sure it's not full of heavy metals and stuff like that. So it's actually a costly adventure. Fox Ridge, probably like 60% of the ponds in Fox Ridge are managed by the town. But again, we have the funding through the drainage districts to go and clean. We've cleaned a couple of those out. I think we have a couple in Lakewood Meadows that are on Middle Cheshire Road that the town maintains, but most of Lakewood Meadows is covered under each individual homeowners association and stuff.
Yeah, and we're moving away from
The town
taking
doesn't want to
any-
maintain.
We don't want any stormwater management facilities. to
We're stuck with a
maintain.
few, but
Yeah, as we move forward,
we're
there-
learning.
it's either the HOA
Yeah.
is gonna take it.
No
So
wonder
your job will
people
just be
can't buy
inspections.
houses in the town of Canandaigua.
Sorry.
I said, no wonder people can't afford houses in the town of Canandaigua.
Yeah, there are HOA fees and stuff like that, Lakewood Meadows, the townhomes and everything. But it does maintain the infrastructure and keeps a nice neighborhood.
Chris, going back to the certificate of occupancy for single family home.
Yeah.
With these VRBOs or where people are renting out a room, do you have to get involved with that?
So what it is it's a short-term rental. A short-term rental is when you rent a home for under 30 days. And you have to rent the entire structure and it's still a single family dwelling. So you're not changing the use, you're not changing anything, and the government can't really say you can't rent to these people, this people. It's still a single family dwelling, you're renting a single family dwelling. As far as renting a single room in it, that becomes a lodging house and it's no longer a single family dwelling. It's a lodging house or transient. So
Does it become your problem? I guess
that
is my-
becomes a
my
problem
question.
if I get a phone call. I can't, and it's, a person's home is their castle. We have zero right to enter someone's home after they get their certificate of occupancy. What you do in your home is what you do in your home. If someone complains that they stayed there and stuff like that, or they're advertising online and I get a complaint, yeah, we have to follow up and stuff like that, because then it becomes a matter of record and everything. We do have some in the town and we have written letters because people that have been renting single rooms in their homes have been applying for the short-term rental permit. And we're like, oh, you can't rent a single room. But then we do have another section of our code that allows for single-family dwellings with an accessory apartment, which is allowed in a lot of our portions of our code. So when they come in and say, I'm renting a room, I'm like, well, does your room have a hot pot? Does it have a microwave? Does it have a sink? Does it have a bathroom and stuff? Which you can consider that an entirely separate dwelling unit.
Apartment?
So that becomes the accessory.
The accessory
Yeah.
apartment.
Yeah.
And see, this is allowed in a lot of our zoning districts, so that they can rent an accessory apartment in their home. An accessory apartment, the house is supposed to look like a single family dwelling from the outside. There's no two sets of utilities, there's no two mailboxes, not two addresses. An accessory apartment, the intent, I believe, was to have grandparents or
In-law.
college age kids
Mhm.
that be able to live at home still, but have their separate independent space. I don't know if the intent was to have a rentable apartment in the, but our code is kind of silent on it. So our interpretation is, since it's silent, we have to allow the accessory apartment and it to be rented.
Does it become more of a pain for you as far as inspection? You don't care because
I
it's
can't,
allowed?
so I can't inspect a single family dwelling because, again, what,
Well, that
I would need a
was my
warrant.
question, if this becomes a burden for you or not.
No, because
Okay,
to enter into someone's single family home, I would need a warrant, and we don't go there.
Unless you're doing like an inspection for an addition or something.
Well, then they have a building permit and they
Right.
applied for it and everything like that. A lot of people is like, my home in Newark, built in 1889. It was built to the codes in 1889.
Yes.
They were 3 pages. I mean, the codes back in 1889. So you cannot inspect a home built in 1889 to modern codes. If I have 3 bedrooms in the attic with no windows, no egress, and open walls and no insulation, that was legal in 1889. If I have bedrooms in the basement with block walls and a locked door from the outside, that was legal in 1889. But you can't say someone can't rent that room in their short-term rental. So, because it was legal when they issued a certificate of, even, there was probably no zoning or code
I was gonna
office
say there
back in
wasn't.
1889. They're just, yeah, so again, you'd really need, it would be difficult to do inspections on a single family home unless for some reason we had a different zoning use in the town where short-term rentals become a use.
Right. Some municipalities are doing that,
Yeah,
where they become a special use permit
or not even,
and-
not even that, they,
for their own
Yeah.
entity. And then that triggers the ability.
Because
for Planning
then,
board review, for Chris to
Well,
go out,
as-
yeah,
As you know, we're
Yeah,
talking about this
yes.
in the ordinance, and I'm going a step further. Once you create an obligation to
You've
inspect,
bought
you,
it.
you
Yeah.
incur the responsibility and the potential liabilities if something goes wrong.
but it also becomes a commercial use. And like I said, you know how like our building safety inspector, Ron Bement, who's a full-time firefighter, works 2 times and 2 times a week, usually in the town of Canandaigua. His job is to inspect every commercial occupancy, every assembly occupancy. So you kick this into a commercial occupancy, because that's what it is. They're renting, so it's commercial.
Mhm.
You might as well hire 2 more people.
Yeah.
Isn't it reasonable to think that because the VRBO thing is becoming a real habit amongst people and we're in a very desirable area, that you're going to start having complaints about?
No, we do get complaints, and the big complaints are they're having parties every
Parties.
weekend. But the thing is, what if you wanted 22 people? I have
Yeah.
25 people over for
Oh my
Christmas at my
God, yeah, I
house.
have more than that.
So is the town gonna step in and say, I can't do that? So it's still the same use. It's a single
But
family
what if their
dwelling.
complaints are that, the toilet keeps overflowing, or
That's,
there's a sewage smell in the backyard?
that kicks
Or
it into
the-
MS4. So illicit discharge is sewer smells. There's
So
some-
you can answer some complaints
Absolutely,
like that.
and we do.
From a non-resident, that's what I'm saying.
They are a resident. If they're renting the
Okay,
home, they're a
just-
resident of the town, and
So
They
there
are-
definitions that would include
Yeah,
those people.
if someone's renting something for a short-term rental and invites me in. Doesn't have to be the owner who
Okay.
invites me in. It can be the person renting it because they are the resident at that time. And I'll go in and I'll look at it and the septic tank is overflowing because the house that was built for 4 bedrooms now has 25 people in it, taking showers and partying and
Exactly. yeah.
and it's leaking over, yeah, and then I shut it down and I post the building unsafe. And they get horrible reviews on
And they have to
VRBO
fix it.
or
Right.
Airbnb, and the next person doesn't rent it and stuff, so
So it's really the property owner.
it's the
honestly,
property
yeah,
owner.
Their
Yeah.
responsibility.
We did
for
have
their
someone
business.
doing weddings,
Yeah, with
which-
weddings,
that was a little far, that was a commercial occupancy.
weddings with DJs and.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, sure, if someone has a big home on the lake and stuff, has a wedding. Every once in a while for their family members, sure, we understand that, but if you're renting it for
As a venue.
as a venue,
Right.
then
Good
yeah,
word,
we've
yeah.
had someone on Middle Cheshire Road. Put up a ginormous tent, 250 people in bands and so, yeah, the next weekend I got complaints about that.
Now, we had a situation in terms of our house when we bought it. Previous owner had run a commercial business out of one end of the house. And at closing, we had to agree that that property would be no longer used commercially.
Well, the thing, so
And now was that town?
what kind of commercial use
Yeah, what
though?
was the business?
Well, her husband ran a CPA and then she ran,
So they
that's-
probably had
but
a
that's fine.
minor home occupation.
But,
then
but
she ran a travel business.
which again is fine, because I mean, we're in the days of COVID.
Yeah.
Everyone I run an engineering firm for my home. I mean, it's,
Those are special use permits.
or they don't
generally.
need to be.
Right, but they can be, and they run, if they're, for instance, they run bed and breakfast, the one by Pierce Brook on Bristol Road, what's the name of that?
Yeah.
It transferred hands.
Sutherland.
Sutherland,
Yeah.
yes, they had a special permit to run a bed and breakfast. As long as that use was continuous with a new owner, that special use permit runs with the transfer of the property. But if you stop a use, if you stop something that's been approved, then
For 1 year, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna
For-
say.
yeah,
like a year.
for a year, then that it goes away and you need to come back to the town.
Why would the town make it a requirement that it no longer be used commercially?
So a lot of things like, we have homes that are riding stables and they need a special use permit. We have homes that are automotive repair where they have a garage. And these ones, we actually have to go in and inspect and stuff because they're commercial occupancies in a residential neighborhood. They're not high impact, and that's why the planning board approves them, but they're still commercial occupancies. And they have to maintain certain things, oil, grease separators, fire extinguishers, smoke alarm systems, fire alarm, life safety, emergency lighting and stuff like that. So we can inspect those.
Why would it be a requirement that it be seats? I mean, we weren't gonna
Because-
do anything anyway, but
Oh, that's between you, your
Yeah,
lawyers.
it's
and
not a
your- That's not the
requirement.
town.
Yeah, that's up to you, the person who
'Cause
buys the property.
Honestly, if you're running a CPA or the other stuff in this house, we don't even need a special use permit. The thing is in order to get a major home occupancy, it was special equipment, storage of materials. There's a lot of different things that would kick in a major home occupancy.
You might have customers coming maybe once or twice a day
Yeah.
or,
We have
Yeah.
someone that does coffee roasting in their garage that has 0 people coming in, but they have a special piece of equipment. So
yeah.
we have to inspect that every 3 years and they do a wonderful job.
They
But
serve your coffee.
Right.
They separated their garage into 2 parts. And this part is their coffee roasting and stuff.
That's the naked duck people, right?
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
smells amazing.
That
Twice a
smells
week.
But it smells so good.
So, yeah, there's a lot of different special use permits. in
Yeah,
the
we have
town.
someone that's sells what would you say? Not automatic weapons or firearms.
FFL license, and they
Yeah.
invite people in their homes, but they have, I think, 15 weapons, handguns at a time. And it's just in their living room, and they do it with their friends, and once in a while, people come in and stuff like that. We have one that actually makes his own ammunition in his basement and sells it online where no one comes into his home and stuff like that, but he has special equipment, and so there's a lot of different special use permits in the town.
I have to say something about Chris. I've dealt with him quite a bit for the last few months,
Back and forth.
back and forth. And I have to say, he is amazing. He is easy to get in touch with. He'll speak with you, he'll speak in a language you can understand. And he works at taking care of the problems. And
Appreciate that.
I, for one, appreciate that, and I would like everybody to know that.
Nice.
Thanks. But here's a list of some special use permits that,
Yeah,
and I don't take care of special use, that's planning and
yeah, we
zoning.
do that.
Essential services, motor vehicles, excavation, airstrips, campgrounds. All these different kennels, like if you have more than
yeah.
3 dogs
Oh,
in your
yes.
home, you're actually
Yeah.
considered a kennel. And a lot of people license their dogs and they license their 4th dog and they're like, oh, you're a kennel. But when they get their special use permit, they're like, I'm not breeding dogs, I just have 5 dogs, this and that. And they get issued a special use permit. They have 4 or 5 acres and the dogs. Everyone's reasonable on the planning board and everything. We have farm markets.
We get a lot of the,
Little
yeah, the
things.
little fruit stands. Contractor storage yards.
Yeah.
We see those.
Tourist homes, which is the
And
bed and
breakfast.
breakfast, which everyone gets confused. They hear Airbnb, VRBO, Finger Lakes rents and so on. That. Those are all short-term rentals. They're not bed and breakfast or
yes,
tourist homes or
Yeah.
where it's 1 or 2 nights kind of thing.
And a special use permit is really an extra level of review. It's allowed in the zoning with extra conditions. We're just a little bit more mindful of the use and they
And the
have
neighbors
more,
and
and
stuff.
yeah, it's like an extra, I would just say level of protection for the homeowner and the people in the neighborhood.
So are there zoned areas that will not, where you cannot get a special use permit, or
Yeah,
is
so,
they
like-
allowed across the
Yeah,
board?
So if we-
each zoning district has
As their
Yeah.
own, yeah.
what's what are
Yeah.
specially permitted uses.
Yeah.
It varies by.
It
zone.
varies
Yeah, it
by
varies
zoning
by-
area. I
yeah,
see. Okay.
absolutely.
So like right here, we have AR1, AR2 and everything.
I see.
And if we go to RLD, the residential lake district, if we go specially permitted uses, I don't think there is any.
You do realize that it is difficult for the average intelligent person.
To read the code.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, that,
And that's what I mean, I do a lot of walking people through the code.
Mhm.
we get calls.
We find stuff every day too.
We do too. The dog thing, the
Yeah.
kennel, I didn't realize that until Gene Chrisman had somebody in for a dog license. Kicked him over to us because it was 4 dogs versus 3. So there's always something new and exciting.
It's
we learn.
fun.
Mhm.
And then some people read the code better than we do and they catch us on stuff. So
That's true.
like here's R130 has all these special use permits, like you can have a golf course or a country club, a kennel, tourist home, keeping of horses, that sort of thing. Which I don't know why keeping of horses is a special permit in certain districts, but maybe that's because it's a smaller residential area.
I think that was kind of recent.
Yeah, but that also contradicts because we require 5 acres for
Yeah,
horses.
it contradicts other stuff as far as
I
like,
think that's why it's a special use permit, right?
except for if you look at our zoning schedule, it says it's perfectly fine in the R130 to have horses.
So
if
in
you-
your spare time, do you page through the town code?
Yeah, I
and,
read it. I keep it by my bed at night.
Chris has it memorized.
Chris
No.
does have it.
Helps you go
memorized.
to sleep.
So we almost have some of it memorized,
Some of it
but
I
I
do.
never answered. I'm like, let me check on that.
Yes.
I hate
always
giving
read
people
it.
the wrong answer.
Because not only do we have this, we have a special, which I have bookmarked, section of just random
Yeah.
regulations that for different
Additional-
things,
Don't make
just
sense.
that, well, they're just,
We didn't know where to put them.
yeah, they're like a hodgepodge of
Yeah, they're
regulations.
supplementary
Yeah,
regulations.
and I have that bookmarked because you just never know what you're gonna find.
And our code
Yeah, the code book. is
isn't
like
all the
this
same
thick.
Yeah,
age.
I-
Some of it's really
No.
old, some of it's really new, and it builds.
Right,
It
and there's some
evolves over
regulations
time.
that they're there. I can't explain why.
Then we have permitted modifications where your reductions, projections, everything like that, where if you like a fireplace on the side of your house that has that bump out, if it's 18 inches, it doesn't factor into the side setback, but if it's 2 feet, then it's the side
Does.
setback and stuff there. So you end up bouncing around like 20 different places in the code to write a determination.
Mhm.
And we also, another thing that happens once in a while, like every order and decision made by the code enforcement officer gets filed with the town clerk, and everyone who feels aggrieved from that order, if I denied a building permit, can file an interpretation and get sent to the ZBA. And then it's appellate court to find out if my decision was correct based on the code, or they have a different interpretation of the code and they want to overturn the decision made. So we've had a few of those happen in the past years
You've had one probably about 6 months ago.
for the
Docks
docks.
and moorings.
And it was contradictory. And the nice thing is I wanted them to file an interpretation so the ZBA could make a decision, because the code was contradictory, because it said an appendage couldn't be attached to an appendage in the mooring law, but then another section that said appendage can only be attached to the main walkway, and appendage can only be this size and stuff. So, and then their chart showed appendages attached to appendages. So they, in the end, we have another section, which is kind of funny. Way at the beginning, general provisions, 115 says the most restrictive shall always apply.
Right.
Mhm.
So if one
Now,
thing
that-
says,
That
Where
farm
there's a
market,
contradiction, the most restrictive.
yeah, applies.
that farm market on Middle Cheshire started as a little tiny
Yes,
roadside stand.
yes,
Yeah.
they did.
And they have special.
They
permits
have
and stuff.
permits, yeah.
And so
and
that,
they've
but
grown.
as they expanded, they had at some point get a special permit.
Yep.
Yes, they did, to address parking especially
Yeah.
and safety, public safety.
And then the wife, New York State's kind of neat because they keep releasing new permits. I mean, they had brewery permits, meadery permits, distillery permits and everything like that. They're only $120 a year. So I mean, you could sell 10,000 gallons of brewery just out of your garage kind of thing with New York State inspecting. But they released a new permit recently that allows you to do home
Oh,
baked goods.
baking, yes.
So the wife created this home baked goods and they added another addition to their
It's
specialist
kind of like
permit.
having a bake sale out there. with
Yeah,
farmers
And
market.
they're
it's-
amazing. They're
they are.
amazing.
There's certain regulations. You can't have eggs or milk or stuff in the
The right,
ingredients,
right by Crossman's,
Oh, because
the,
it sits.
but
I
the
mean,
bread,
people love it.
Yeah, the
farm
bread's
stand
great.
by Crossman's.
There's a bakery across the street.
No, no.
It's-
Well,
it's in another
there's a
shed there.
bakery
Oh.
in one of the
Oh,
little
yeah.
sheds.
yeah.
They have these empanadas in the refrigerator.
You've been there, I guess.
Are you
Oh, yeah.
serious? I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I don't
Honestly, you get the
bananas.
Wegmans
need
to
go
go
down
from
there.
there
I
from
only
the
go to
split.
Snuffy's. I need
That's
to
awesome.
detour and go down Little Cache or something.
The eggs are good from Snuffy's.
I get my own eggs.
Stuffy says
Oh, yeah.
great fruit. I love Stuffies.
Any other questions or anything, or?
Let me go back to, you mentioned things like water heaters. Do you really get notified every time somebody replaces a water heater or? a
Only
furnace
if
or-
they're, so furnaces, yes, because a lot of times they have to change ductwork and a lot of people are going from propane or fuel oil, which is expensive as can be now, to propane or going, when they're
Natural gas.
changing certain things or modifying things, yes, people are going geothermal.
Do they know that though?
Sometimes.
No.
Honestly,
Sometimes they do, sometimes.
sometimes they do, sometimes don't, and
Yeah.
the job of code enforcement really is to protect the residents. So if they get a new water heater and don't get a permit, stuff like that, we didn't inspect it, we don't know if it's installed correctly. But if we did inspect it because they got a building permit, we protect the homeowner from someone not fastening a gas pipe correctly or not elevating it off the floor correctly or
Doing improper
Right.
electrical work.
or venting
something.
it to the same thing their wood-fired stove is getting vented to. So again, we're just the extra protection to protect the resident.
We also require workers' comp and disability with every building permit, which sometimes we get,
Yeah,
people complain about that, but it's really to protect the homeowner.
if they get injured on the site.
Yeah, if
And
something happens.
and you know
when-
how that, I hate to bring up situation, but
Yeah, but if what if
We
they're
had a
doing
loss
it
of life on your
themselves, they don't
property.
need that.
There's an exemption form that they fill out
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
But, and we often get, I mean, for instance, the entire neighborhood on Stablegate was re-roofed by a company
yeah,
without,
permits at the start.
without permits. The contractor was telling them they were pulling permits from the town, but they weren't. So that's something that, you know, our department
And
remedied.
Doug
and-
lives in there, so
So
Right.
what about contractors who are self-employed, have no employees?
so there's something called a CE 200.
Yeah.
Well, I know that,
Yeah.
but not those contractors don't always know that.
They-
Well,
no, they do.
They
They
do
do.
once.
Because
they
they're
know.
avoiding
You'd
buying
be-
workers'
You'd be
comp.
surprised, they'll say, you know, I can't get workers' comp.
So
tell
what-
And I'll say, yes,
how
you
to do it.
can. Go ahead.
Yes,
So the reason
absolutely.
behind them saying that is whatever you fill out a CE 200,
Yeah,
they ask for the dollar value of the job.
yeah.
So if someone's putting on a deck, they have to say, oh, it's a $25,000 job because wood, it's materials and labor. At the end of the year, the government has their social security number, their planning identification number, and they did $1.7 million worth of construction. And then when they file their taxes at the end of the year, if it's within 5 or 10% different from what they claimed on their CE 200, it raises red flags.
Yeah.
So that's another way that's beyond us.
I dealt with that for years.
Yeah.
And
What kind of inspections do you do for geothermal?
Pretty much the connections to the heater and stuff like that, making sure that, see, when geothermal is running water piping and water and electric, we have to make sure they're separated. They're not running pipes over panels and electric and their clearances and everything like that. Because a lot of people, when they put geothermal in, it's in addition to their existing heater, air conditioning and stuff. And they're trying to wedge it into a place that doesn't have the clearances and safety and stuff like that. But the outside stuff, it's just a pipe. It's just a buried pipe. And we'll go out there and take a picture of a buried pipe to make sure that it's to the depth they showed on the plans and they're not trying to get away with not meeting. Because the deeper you go, the land becomes that standard 55, 56 degrees. And we had one where he buried it 3 feet deep and was just kind of lazy and wanted to, so we're, no, your plans say this is where your charts say. So again, we're just kind of looking out for the resident.
so some of the newer technologies require additional education. Do you go for example, solar technology?
So, yeah, so every code enforcement officer needs 24 hours of continuing education credit every year. So
Oh, really?
Dale goes to the one in Syracuse that lasts a week, and I go to the one in the Finger Lakes that lasts weeks, and it's different times of the year, so there's always someone in the office.
Mhm.
But, and then we are both members of the Monroe County Fire Marshals, Finger Lakes Building Officials, and Yates Ontario Building Officials, which every month we have a luncheon where they have someone come in from a company. Like next week is MRB is doing a class on large scale solar for us. And that's at the Finger Lakes racetrack and stuff.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, Dale will wanna go to that.
I know. Actually, he doesn't like the fingerless racetrack because it's just, what do they call it?
The slots.
The
he
slot
doesn't-
machine, yeah,
There are no tables or
no
anything.
tables.
I'd like to say from experience, the ZBA is very reasonable.
Professionals, yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, you know, so if people think, well, you got these codes, you know, they're inviolable. Well, if you can make a case, it makes sense. They're-
Yes,
Yeah.
they take everything into consideration.
And the big
absolutely.
thing is like, a lot of the variances are the lakefront and stuff and the setbacks to the side property lines and the lot coverage, building coverage. Well, when the owner comes in and says, I'm gonna put in some dry wells, some rain gardens, some ditches, this to protect the lake and stuff. It's a give and take and stuff, but that's why the ZBA is there, is to look at those and on a case by case.
Case by
basis.
case.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's been very informative.
Thank you, Chris.
I retain it 10% of what you said today, and I feel like it.
Well, if you got my cell phone number, it's- you can call. Oh, another thing that Sean and I are doing, and it's been a slow progress, is our software. We're
I don't think it's been slow. I think we've been slow and steady.
slow and steady, no, but like, I've been nervous about kicking it off to the public because,
So right now, we accept everything everything we get for applications it's paper. And it goes through Ally, gets logged in and goes to Chris, and then it comes to me for planning and zoning. But we're going paperless is our goal and more user friendly with a software for the public, contractors, developers, residents. And we've been internally softly using it, I guess, soft launch. But we're gonna show you what it looks like today.
so if you are a
This is
resident,
top secret.
yeah, if you're a resident contractor builder, you can create an account, log in and everything, and it would get you to a point where you can apply for a permit. I'm gonna take you to the kind of the back end, which is what we at the town see. Come in. Dave.org. So we have code enforcement, inspections, workspaces, which are how many building permits are open right now. And if, let's see, what's a fun one to go to? Here's a new home. Chris Santa Construction
We're at townhome.
has the building permit fee that they paid. Townhome. We can go to the application data, permit bills and stuff. And look at each file, like here's the site plan, the architectural plans. If we click on it, we can look on it and review them.
So if a homeowner is, say, adding an addition and doing it themselves, can they do this?
So that's what we're gonna roll out pretty
Yes, we're
soon.
gonna roll that out.
It might be difficult at first, and some people, if they're not as computer savvy, are gonna need our
Mhm.
assistance.
Yeah.
But like, right now, we're uploading the drawings and stuff, and everything's available for us to look at online. As far as building
Mhm.
plans and stuff.
We are planning to do a little kiosk in our office too for the public. If they want to
So,
come in.
so our
and
new
do it.
zoning officer can sit by their side
Help them enter.
and walk through it and stuff, but yeah, we upload the site plans, the insurance, the architectural plans, applications. And then there's the actual, when it's issued. Is, let's see. Let's see which ones they're issued. There's a lot of different, status is. Permit issued.
So do they have to go on at certain intervals in the process and update?
No, so-
When they are, or?
So we issue a permit, or they make application, we issue a permit, and they'll get notifications via email, like there's a invoice ready because we've issued the permit, or if we have a question on it, automatically ask them, or if we need additional paperwork, insurance and stuff, we'll click on it to
Or if they need
notify
an
them.
inspection of something?
If they need an inspection,
Did
they can go on
And
and
they
click,
can-
and they
yeah.
can request an inspection and give us what days they're available and stuff.
They'll be able to schedule it online.
They'll be able to schedule it and everything,
Will
or
this-
request it.
Will the software enable our like planning board and zoning board members to review the application?
Yes,
that's what
so
the next
we're,
step
the
is.
next module, which we're working on right now, getting everything digitized, all of our applications and our processes,
Mhm.
will allow Tom for, as planning board chairman, former, he would have been able to come in, we would send him, he would be alerted that there was a plan to review. And he would, there's a special area just to review plans.
So it'll replace what we do now with our board documents?
Absolutely.
That's gonna be really.
And you
nice.
can
I
leave
would
it-
like-
Lots of paper.
You can leave comments
Yeah.
and
So from the
Remove
a
redundancy.
construction
Yes.
company's point of view, which would have been mine when I was working.
Yes,
Would someone in a construction company be able to go on there and do all the things for the homeowner?
they could request the inspections and stuff, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
but, and they would be able to add the blueprints and because
Yes,
typically.
when they
Yes.
make
As
applications.
an applicant, yeah.
Yep.
yes.
And, okay.
The
Interesting.
biggest thing is the owner's signature where do we have a thing where they might be able to sign it actually online and stuff, so. we're
Right,
working on
because
that.
we often get applications where the contractor signs, the engineer tries to sign, and we have to kick it back because the homeowner, the property owner has to sign.
Because we had a home on County Road 16 where the renter put an addition on the back of the home.
Without permission of the owner.
Did that really happen?
We issued a building permit.
Oh, my God. Well, the homeowner should be delighted.
Well, the homeowner was delighted and everything at the beginning, but then something happened and everything like, oh, I didn't give you permission to do it. It was one of those, at first, they probably did and was fine with everything. The renter wanted a deck on the back of the house to sit on and smoke their cigarettes because they couldn't smoke in the house and stuff. But after there was a falling out, it's like, hey, you should have never issued that building permit. So the homeowner signs all building permits now. Or if it's a company, a legal representative, a
Right.
lawyer that's representing a big Wide Waters or something like
Yeah, I
that.
was just gonna say Wide Waters
Yeah.
has their CFO or their,
Anyone pretty
yeah, from
much.
Wide-
So like even like Edgemere, who's going to be working up in the.
Yeah, so
they-
Edgemere does not own that, Volpe does,
Volpe
so all the
does.
applications have to come in with Volpe's
Yeah, the site
signature.
plans.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep,
Oh, and is this particular program, is that going to be expanded to other municipalities?
A lot of municipalities are adopting different softwares. The New York State Department of State was trying to roll out something that every community could use and stuff
Yeah.
like that, so it'd be all the same. But we're a home rule state,
Yeah.
it never works out. And-
Well, there's, I mean, not every community is as progressive.
right,
as-
so this company,
Or can afford, I
pretty-
mean, Bristol,
Yeah,
It's
well,
okay.
and why would they?
or they
You know,
wouldn't need, do
they had
need
50
it?
building permits a year,
that's what I mean.
Mhm.
so.
This is really gonna open up, also transparency wise, it's just, it makes our department
Yeah.
even more transparent than it already is for the public, I think.
And it'll also make everything, because every bit of information in the town can be requested with a freedom of information request. It'll put it all in one spot, so what Jean, our town
Jean's gonna
clerk,
love that, isn't she?
we're working on
We're
making
working
sure she
on
does love
making
it.
sure she loves it.
Because right now the software has to transfer files to the Laserfish and we're ironing stuff out, but it's gonna work.
I guess I got a question from this committee's perspective. And that is, overall, how do you feel about how you're keeping up with the pressures for development?
The only thing I'm worried about in the future is energy code. Which I'm an electrical engineer, professional engineer, and I can keep up on it. But I'm thinking a lot of other communities are gonna have difficulty reviewing plans, which they're gonna need an MRB and stuff to review energy code compliance plans, because New York State is going to be kicking off some major renovations as far as code changes, and it's not gonna be like there's something called a stretch code right now you can adopt, which are more restrictive energy standards, which are a little more difficult. The new ones are gonna, I hate to say, almost feel like they're pushing companies and businesses and development
Right.
out of the state, because they might go to pure electrification in homes where you can't use natural gas, fuel oils, propane. It has to be all electric.
My house is all electric.
Yeah, which might be energy efficient, but I don't know if our grid can handle a new subdivision.
That's the.
And the
dilemma.
heating
Yeah.
loads, like, cause
Mm.
we have Creekview apartments, which the walls are 18 inches thick and they can heat a apartment with a mini split unit. But does the everyday person building a home want the added expense of $35,000 to build a home to meet those requirements? And when another state's not doing it, it's the usual, but. And then they're gonna have charging stations in garages
Yes,
mandatory.
yes.
You can't run ductwork out of the thermal space. There's a lot of different changes.
So
Coming.
bringing that up, so if someone does get an electric vehicle and has to install a charging station, is that something that's requires an inspection?
Yeah, it's a $50 building permit and we have an electrical inspector, third party come in, they make sure everything is connected correctly. And then we go in and make sure if there's batteries, they're separated to a certain distance, they're not within an egress path,
Mhm.
they're not where the car is gonna pull up forward and smash into it, and
Mhm.
expose live parts and stuff like that, so.
What
vehicle
about
impact
what
protection.
about for the e-bikes? Do they need a special charging unit?
No, most people with an e-bike just plug in
I
the
think it's
wall.
just a plug, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But some of the new businesses in the uptown's probably gonna have charging stations. We've issued a bunch of permits for the car dealerships and stuff like that,
Yes.
because. Like is it GMC, the
Randy,
Cadillac,
Randy,
yeah,
Randy.
Farnsworth. They just, I think Cadillac's going all electric, and I looked at the Cadillac they had the other day that's parked on the side. But they had to add probably $50,000 worth of new equipment just to be able to power up this new line and stuff. They had to add $100-something thousand worth of building to have a lift that's able to lift up a vehicle with what, 10,000 pounds worth of batteries on it. So, yeah, they're doing a lot of permits for those sort of things, and they're always keeping up on things.
So do you have to inspect those?
Yeah.
And is there a periodic time frame where they need to be re-inspected, or don't we know yet?
No, I mean, those things we don't inspect. When we talk inspections, we talk inspections of just the equipment themselves as far as the charging station, not the actual
Mhm.
lift and all that stuff. But Ron Piment is the commercial inspector, and he'll go and make sure they're not blocking the charger with cardboard. They're maintaining because the electric stuff now has new kinds of fire extinguishers that put out electric fires and battery fires, because they're impossible to put out with just water and the normal fire extinguishers. So yeah, we're always trying to stay up on that, and he's always inspecting.
So what about and still in talking about electric, what about the supply part of it? Who manages, I mean.
The utility
I
company.
see them doing all the new poles down
Yeah.
there. So I'm on Laurel Lane and we have underground wiring that's 52 years old.
Yeah.
How long can they expect that to last? I asked this question once before and someone got very angry at me because they said the RG&E doesn't make mistakes. Well,
So-
guess what?
So the funny thing is about utility companies is where if you're doing electric in your home, you're allowed to use this size transformer, this size wire, this and that, where they have a transformer they put in, it's rated for 3 homes. Oh, they can put 5 or 6 homes on it, or 7 homes and stuff. So they have their own kind of National Electric Safety Code rules, and they maintain their own equipment.
No one has looked at that in
They
years.
they have their own regulatory committee, and if nothing's broken, they're not gonna go look at it. They'll look at the transformer if someone hits it with a car or something like that. What's working there yet?
I mean, I have, it's in my yard,
Yeah.
one of them. And it had a flag there for a period of time and I assumed they were gonna look at it. I removed the flag 3 years later.
The flag, the only thing the flag is for is if someone's doing construction nearby, they put flags up so they
Well,
don't hit the
no, that was
wires.
not the reason, because
No.
it's fully constructed, but. You know, Laurel Lane started with, I think, 14 houses, and then they stopped construction because of septic problems. And then when they put sewers in, of course, it's fully constructed, and I think it's got 40 homes, something like that on there now. So that extended the use of the underground wiring, the full length of the street.
But the underground wiring is, we can get into a huge electrical thing, but so there's primary and their secondary. Primary is like thousands and thousands of volts where it doesn't lose power over a long distance. But then when you get to a transformer, it changes a 45 kVA to 120 volts, which will go 300 feet. And that's the maximum distance before it loses power. So the 45 kVA that's underground there, or 15 kVA, can go miles and miles before it needs a substation. And that's what substations are, is the power loses a lot of
Yeah.
it. And then they have to bump it back up and it loses.
Well, I
power.
think I'm one of the few houses that still is all electric on that street.
Yeah,
And actually, I can guarantee my bills are cheaper than anybody else's. that has
right now,
natural
as
gas.
far as fuel and gas, yeah, probably.
But energy is gonna become a more critical issue in the years to come.
Yeah, like, I mean, you can see California, they're having grid issues. They're asking people to buy electric cars, but then they're asking you not to charge your electric cars, sort of thing. So we have to upgrade
Thanks,
stuff.
Sarah. All right,
We
well,
can,
I have to go.
okay.
Chris is available if you need to email him or ask him more questions, but I
This
think
has
we're
been
gonna
very
wrap up
helpful.
at 10 here. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
That
and
was really informative.
We're
for
gonna-
my work
Yeah.
here.
Exactly.
we're gonna
And I
update.
used to work there.
This will
is
be
great.
online pretty soon. So
Yeah.
if you want to play with it,
I think we need to put it in the newsletter for December.
maybe.
I think,
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I do.
Not too soon.
No, I'm just,
no, maybe
Maybe
not this yet.
Maybe
When you
January.
guys
I think
are
January is
launching it
perfect.
and you're comfortable with it. we
I
can
just-
do it.
Well,
I
I think
just
we
sent an
should,
email.
I think we should do a major rollout to the public. We can roll it out, but a major when planning and zoning is ready.
Yeah,
You
When should it
might
be,
want to
January?
target market first, you know.
we've been doing that
Oh, okay.
internally. That's why we have like 80 permits so far. I've been accepting their copies on paper
Okay.
and scanning them in and seeing if there's any bugs and
Well,
stuff.
and
And
I really thought
Allison's
just
been-
about everything you covered today. I mean, I don't know if everybody else would find it interesting, but I find it interesting. It's like a reminder of everything that we do, that you guys do in the development office. They'd be good topics for like little did you know articles in the newsletter or little posts on Facebook. Did you know we do all this stuff? Do
That's
you have
true.
questions about this? You can do this, you can.
Truthfully, the biggest thing we do is answer that bell and questions.
And phone
And our
calls.
phone
We get
calls.
so many phone calls.
That's the thing, you know.
Sorry. I have to-
You
Thank
know,
you,
you have
Sarah.
a
See ya.
limited capability and time, and it just opens up more conversation. But I too agree that it's important that people know these
Mhm.
things. I mean, I've learned a lot of this stuff the hard way, as Chris knows.
Yes, I will. Yep.
And
I'm gonna say the most favorite thing that I do is meeting with the public,
is what?
is meeting with residents and developers
Yeah.
and just that one-on-one.
Because truthfully, when we meet with
I
them,
really enjoy it.
they're always
actually.
coming in wanting to build something.
Yes,
They have an idea, they want to create something, build something, and it's exciting.
it is.
So our meetings, I mean, you get a little more of the development than I do, but it's nice.
Yep.
Well, I told you I met with Edgemere last week, and that was a real eye opener to hear that part of the process, the markets that they have to serve with the affordable housing.
So many different markets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
more
was,
than I would have, more than I thought as well.
It really was, and the one market that is excluded is the one that I thought should be included, and that's seniors. And that, you know, they can't use that.
Right.
It was really interesting. I had a,
We got a meeting Friday speaking.
no.
No,
it's
that
been
was canceled.
Yeah, but I am going to, on top of Sarah's email that just went out, I'm going to send an email explaining what happened at the meeting I had with Edgemere last week, so.
We should close this meeting. I could get a comment.
Okay.
Just a reminder that we have the volunteer committee luncheon tomorrow at Ononda at Crouch Hall.
I won't be there.
Okay. If you haven't
We'll send you a heads
RSVP'd or
Okay.
feel free to show up because I think we're gonna have extra food.
up. Edgemere. We out.
Try, I'll